Before 10,000 BCE, humans lived as nomadic hunter-gatherers, moving in small, egalitarian bands. This mobile lifestyle produced physically robust ancestors. Males averaged 5'9", while women stood around 5'3". They roamed freely across the landscape, following the seasons rather than owning the soil. That mobility ended in Mesopotamia around 4000 BCE. In cities like Uruk, humans traded the chase for the grindstone. By using heavy stone handmills to process wheat and barley into edible flour, these communities anchored themselves to permanent settlements. This transition came with a severe biological tax. The intense, repetitive labor of early farming shrunk the average human male from 5'9" to 5'3". Women lost a similar 3 inches, dropping to an average of 5 feet. The towering athletic frames of the nomadic past were replaced by the smaller, stooped bodies of landlocked farmers. While agriculture diminished the individual human body, it created a massive surplus of cereal grains. For the first time, wealth was tangible, storable, and capable of being hoarded in quantities far beyond what one family could consume. Stored wealth required a new social order. Surplus food needed armed guards to protect it and administrators to oversee it. The horizontal band of the nomad folded upward into a triangle, creating the social pyramid that would define the next 6,000 years. Early civilizations utilized the pyramid as more than a religious symbol. It was a physical ledger of staggering physical labor. These structures are literal manifestations of a society designed to funnel energy from the bottom class toward a single elite point. The Egyptian social structure relied on a massive peasant base to provide manual labor. During the harvest, they fed the empire. During the flood season, they were relocated to the pharaoh's building projects, spending their lives dragging multi-ton limestone blocks to ensure the ruler's immortality. As civilizations grew, elites realized that maintaining this hierarchy required more than physical monuments. They needed to embed this inequality into the permanent fabric of the law. King Hammurabi formalized this in 1772 BCE by etching 282 laws into a stone slab. The code explicitly assigned different values to different lives, establishing that the bones of a noble were legally worth more than a plebeian, whose life outweighed a slave. By cementing these castes in stone, the elite presented a world where inequality was the natural, unquestionable order. Civilizations did not hide the pyramid, they celebrated it as the foundation of justice. Ruling purely through the threat of violence is economically and physically exhausting. To ensure long-term stability, the elite developed psychological frameworks to convince the people at the base to accept their position. During China's Zhou dynasty, rulers introduced the mandate of heaven. This concept argued that the emperor's absolute power was a cosmic requirement granted by the heavens themselves, making any rebellion an act against the universe. This was reinforced by philosophies like Confucianism and Taoism, which emphasized the importance of social harmony and accepting one's lot in life. For the peasant, focus was shifted inward toward family and the farm, teaching that true virtue was found in fulfilling a specific, predetermined role. A similar logic sustained medieval Europe. Under feudalism, the pyramid was reinforced by the church, which taught that kings ruled by God's grace. In this system, serfs remained tied to the land, convinced that their earthly labor was a divine duty. These religious and philosophical layers integrated the social pyramid into the perceived cosmic order. The base of society was no longer just a labor pool. It became a community of individuals who believed their own oppression was a spiritual necessity. When the illusions of divine right or philosophical harmony failed, the elite relied on the pyramid's most primal foundational tool, dread. Genghis Khan mastered the use of psychological shock to maintain control over vast populations. During his sieges, his army frequently herded unskilled peasant workers into the front lines to serve as human shields, using the massacre of the masses to paralyze the cities he intended to conquer. Terror was also used internally to prevent the pyramid from cracking. In 16th century Russia, Ivan the Terrible utilized a campaign of bloody purges to execute any citizens or nobles who might question his absolute authority. ensuring his power was anchored in the corpses of his own people. Niccolò Machiavelli later formalized this observation in his political writings, noting that fear is a more stable foundation than love. Affection is a fickle bond that men break for their own advantage, but the dread of punishment is a permanent deterrent. This constant threat of violence ensured the base of the pyramid remained immobile. The masses continued to hand over their surplus wheat and labor because the alternative was the absolute destruction of their families. Rigid social hierarchies eventually become top-heavy and unsustainable. Empires like Rome and Han China collapsed under the weight of their own bureaucracies, falling into dust when elites extracted more than the base provided. Historically, these collapses resulted in a power vacuum that a new conqueror would fill, simply erecting a fresh pyramid on the ruins of the old one. In 1215, the signing of the Magna Carta created the first lasting legal fracture. By forcing King John to agree to due process, the elite were held accountable to rules they did not invent. This fracture deepened during the bubonic plague, which killed as many as 200 million people. The massive death toll left a critical shortage of laborers, suddenly making the surviving peasants more valuable than the land itself. For the first time, workers could negotiate for higher wages or flee to new lords, inverting the power dynamic that had kept the base pinned for millennia. These shifts proved that the absolute control of the elite was an economic and legal variable, not an unbreakable law of nature. The social pyramid was beginning to dismantle from the bottom up. The year 1776 introduced a political framework that contradicted 6,000 years of established hierarchy. The American Revolution centered on a radical legal thesis, the declaration that all men are created equal. This directly challenged the core logic of Hammurabi's codes and the mandates of heaven, which had functioned on the opposite assumption since the birth of agriculture. While the promise of equality remains an unfinished project, the modern era is defined by the ongoing effort to dismantle the 6,000-year-old social pyramid. The structure that once defined the human story is no longer considered the natural order of the world.